Hi, my name is Brendan Radaball. Welcome back to the Orlando Regional Workshop Series. Thank you to the Orange County government for sponsoring this series. I'm here with Wendy Austin. Wendy, tell me more about your first background.
I am the regional director here in Central Florida. I mostly deal with the FIRST Robotics competition program, but I help out with the other programs as well. I'm a founding mentor for Exploding Bacon 1902. I'm a founding mentor for 5816 Gravy Robotics. I've just been around for a very long time, since you were in high school.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was in high school. And what are we going to present today?
We're going to talk about business plans today and why you need them.
Okay, if you want to get started.
All right, thanks, Brendan. All right. So today I'm going to talk about business plans and why you need them. I know that this is something that teams don't necessarily want to mess with or understand why it's important because they're not a business. Oh, thanks to 12-volt Bolt for my really cool mask and for Gravy for doing these. Okay, so why is it important to have a business plan? Because when you're going to go out and talk to potential sponsors, they need to know who you are and why they should give you money. Okay, and I'm so technical. There we go. So you want to talk about a lot of different things. It's your opportunity to introduce yourself to potential sponsors. They need to know things like, what is FIRST? What's a FIRST team? We don't know. Help us understand. They need to know that you understand how you're going to continue your team, that you're not a one-shot deal, you're not a one-year deal. It doesn't hinge on one person or one group. And when you figure all that out, it helps you plan to make sure that your team will be sustainable. On the teams that I used to run, one of the main rules was that seniors were there to train their replacements. Not to run the team, but to train their replacements. And a business plan is also required for grants. It's required for the Global Innovation Award, and it's required for the Entrepreneurship Award. So what's in a business plan anyway? It's broken down into a couple of different parts. There's generally an executive summary that talks about, who you are, what you do, things like that. It talks about your team structure. It talks about, are you a school team? Are you a community team? Do you have like a board of directors? Do you have a president and a vice president? How your team is put together. It talks about how you plan to continue your team and that you're not just working year to year to year to year. Because with most teams, there's a turnover every 4 years. It's like having a brand new team. So you want to plan for sustainability. They need to know what you want. What are you looking for? Is it just money? Is it mentors? What other kind of support do you need? And it wants to know what your budget is and how you get it and where it goes. So the first thing I always say, and I always have started my teams this way, is you need a mission statement. And a lot of times that is having your kids sit in a room with a bunch of big Post-it notes and talk about, what are we as a team? Are we a community team? Are we a school team? What is our mission? Is our mission to get every one of our students a scholarship? Is our mission to create students who are better community leaders? And a mission statement is almost a paragraph. But you also want to do a vision statement, which is just like a one-sentence quick line about, our team is here to create a better environment for our students, our school, and our community. Something along those lines, so that you have a really quick riff on who you are and what you want to do. And honestly, if you can't figure that out for yourselves, you can't tell anyone else what it is. So it's really important. And I started to say, have your kids Post-it notes all over your build space and talk about, this is what we are as a team. This is what we want to accomplish. And it's going to be different for every team depending on what kind of a team you are and what your economic area is and what is needed in your part of your community. Also included in your business plan is a lot of documentation. So anybody who's talked to me for any length of time, I always say document everything. I want to know, where did your alumni go to school? I want to know how many of your alumni got scholarships and how much. I want to know, who is your longest running sponsor and what kind of relationship do you have with them that makes them want to continue to be your sponsor? How many mentors do you have? How long have they been involved? Is it parents? Is it business people? How many juniors, seniors, sophomores, and freshmen do you have on your team? How do you determine your budget? And all of that stuff needs to be documented. And if you do it as a matter of course all the time, it's a lot easier to sort of gather it up when it's time to put it all down in writing. So new mentors, old mentors, I'm here to tell you, document everything you can think of. Just put it in a notebook somewhere, put it on a computer, make sure you have backup if you put it on a computer. Document your budget, and you don't want to do your bank account exactly, but you definitely want a profit and loss statement. And then more importantly, what was your impact? How do you impact your community? How many outreaches have you done? How many students have you impacted? If you were at Otronicon and you ended up talking to 150 people that day, came over and looked at your robot and played with your robot, and you were able to talk to parents, you've reached 150 people, not the 70,000 that came to Otronicon, but the people that you talked to. Do you do a summer camp? Do you impact your community that way? Do you mentor for an after-school program? Anything like that, you want to write it down and document it so that you can prove what your impact is. You also need that for chairmans. So when you're ready to start, you need to think about your SWOT, and that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So start with your strengths, and this is the same thing. This is something your entire team can get involved with. Get giant Post-it notes. I'm sure if you've listened to the writing one, Bacon was huge on giant Post-it notes all over the walls. And ask the team, what makes us strong? We have mentors that have been with the team for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. It doesn't matter whether they have kids on the team or not, they stay with the team. Our administration at our school has been incredibly supportive of us. We have partnerships with great sponsors that even through difficult times, we've managed to keep these partnerships and talk about not only what your sponsors do for you, but what you do for your sponsors. We go to Take Your Kid Day every year at sponsor XYZ, and we bring the robots, or we do hands-on science experiments, or whatever the thing is, whatever you do to support your sponsors as well. Think about, we have a lot of, even if they're mentors that are remote, some of your seniors have gone away to college, but they still dial in once a week or once a month, or whenever you have an issue with programming, you know that you can go to Skylar in Seattle and he'll jump in, and so you have all kinds of support from all over everywhere. So talk about what makes you a really strong team. Some teams that aren't school teams, you can talk about, we have families with 8 kids and all 8 kids are involved in FIRST. We have parents who take care of all of our logistics for us, that it's not all dumped on one coach. You talk about those kinds of things that make you strong. And then also you want to talk about your weaknesses. And these are all things, strengths and weaknesses, that are internal. They're things that you and your team have to deal with. One of the biggest weaknesses that we find here in Florida and pretty much all over the world is that if you only have one coach, then all of the burden falls on that one coach. So that's a weakness. So you have the perfect opportunity at that point in time to say, our weakness is that we need more mentors. Everything falls on one coach, and we need to spread the load a little bit. So you want to talk about those kinds of things. We are in a school in an undervalued community, and trying to get parent support is hard because they're all working 5 jobs. I mean, these are legit weaknesses, and you just have to figure out how to deal with them. And it's always good if you can say something like, we're a community team, so we don't have a school population to pull from recruitment. That's one of our weaknesses. But we go out and do 20 outreaches a year. So that's how we're able to sort of fix that one. So you want to let them know you're working on it. So what are your opportunities? You have lots of opportunities. You do 35 outreaches every year. You go to ITSAC and Otronicon, and we have a team that their town has like a community night once a month on Main Street. And they are out there with their booth, with their robots, talking every single month, and that's great opportunity. You can talk about opportunities for internships, because one of your sponsors always offers an intern to one of your students. Anything that you can think of that's an opportunity, and you can pretty much make anything an opportunity. And if you can't figure out how, call me and I'll help you. What are your threats? We have a giant threat right now. It's a pandemic. A lot of people are not able to work in their schools. They're not allowed, mentors are not allowed to come on campus. So these are threats. How are you fixing it? Are you Zooming? Do you have Skype sessions? Are you talking to a team in Detroit that can help you out? You're a little low on income this year because one of your sponsors has gone out of business, or they're unable to sponsor you this year. So you do have to update your plan every year. But once you get it started, it makes it that much easier. So once you get all that information, then you can start talking about, okay, here's our SWOT, our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. What do we need to help us to be successful? And it could be mentors, and be specific. I need programming mentors. I need a mentor who can make hotel reservations and make sure the kids are fed. And coaches, this is where you need to jump in and get involved, and don't be afraid to say, I need help, and here's where I need it. Talk about what kind of equipment you need. We have a CNC machine, but it's getting really old, and we'd really like to start budgeting for a new one. We need the ability to travel. We need team shirts because we don't have those. Whatever it is you need. We need space. I have a couple community teams that are in danger of losing their build spaces. So we're looking for a sponsor who can help us find a place to build. Everybody needs money. We always need money. So make sure you know what it is you're asking teams for, sponsors for, because when you go and you make a presentation and the sponsor looks at the kids and goes, well, this sounds wonderful. What do you need? And the kids go, you don't want that. You want them to be able to say, we really need programming mentors, or we need help with travel expenses, or whatever the case may be. All right, so now you have all this information and you formed your business plan. And we're gonna cheat a little bit and go into fundraising. Once you know all this, how do you leverage it? Have everyone on your team give you 2 names. It can be their grandparents, it can be their dentist, it can be the company their parent works for, whatever, 2 names that you have the opportunity to go and talk to these people and ask them for money. The Moose Lodge, the Elks Lodge, the Kiwanis Club, the Toastmasters. Toastmasters love presentations, by the way. Just gonna throw that out there. Whoever you can think of. Think outside your box. There's a hairdresser that sponsors a team. Find out who's not already involved in your organization. Go talk to them. Hey, Chick-fil-A, during build, most years, not this one, we need to feed the kids every night for 5 nights. Do you think you could sponsor a dinner? Same thing with Olive Garden and Tijuana Flats and Firehouse Subs and everyone else. And then go start looking at community organizations. You can Google it and see what's in your neighborhood. You can also look at your local PBS station and see, because there are foundations out there that you have no idea who they are. And they may not sponsor you. They may want to work in the arts. But I would say you could make a pretty good case that a robotics team is part of the arts because you have to do merchandising, you have to do branding, you have to do imaging. Remember all of the things that your teams learn or your kids learn during a robot season. And always, always, always go talk to the largest companies. John Deere has a grant. It's tricky to get, but look it up. Go to your local John Deere store and say, hey, listen, I know we don't really qualify for the large corporate grant, but is there maybe one your store could give us? You know, don't be afraid to think outside the box. I always like to include a first impact. This is the global one, and it's probably a little old, but if you've got somebody on your team that can make a really great graphic that talks about the impact that FIRST has had on your school or your community, you can say things like, 90% of our students have gone on to secondary education, 10% of our students have gotten scholarships, 5% of our alumni are now working in their field, depending on how old your team is. Anything you can think of. We have students now on our team that never considered going to college, but now they are. Anything. Again, if you need help, call me. So that's the simple breakdown of what you need in a business plan and how to put it all together. It doesn't have to be really complicated. Just talk about who you are, what you want to do, and why it's important. Look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities and threats, because if you know what those are, you know how to fight them. Talk about your team organization. You have a parent board and a student board. Everything is run through your teacher. 4-H, Girl Scout, Boys and Girls Clubs, all those. You partner with those organizations and you lay out your team structure according to their rules, whatever it is. How you plan for sustainability. And I cannot stress how important this is, because I've seen teams fall apart because they only had one school mentor, and when that mentor retired or got transferred or whatever, the team fell apart, and you had all these parents and kids who want the team to continue, but they can't because the main mentor is gone. Plan for that ahead of time so that that's not going to happen to you. So that if your mentor walks away, well, they don't walk away, they start a team probably in another state, but you are able to go to the principal and say, listen, we have the backing, we have the booster club, we have the parents, just like the band does, or the choir, or whatever, the football team when the coach changes, that we have the infrastructure necessary to continue to run the team. We just need a faculty person to step up. Ask what you need to be successful. Don't be afraid, and I've seen students do this. They will do their presentation, they look straight at the CEO and say, now will that check be for $5,000 or $10,000? And I have only once in my 15 years doing this had a group of kids talk and get in to see the person in charge of making the decision and be told no. The adults don't need to do it, the students need to do it, but you need to practice. Don't go in there and wing it. Make sure you have clear numbers in your budget, where you're getting your money, where your money's going. And that is the end, Brendan. You want to jump right back up here? Let me put on my 12-volt bolt mask. These are great little giveaways, by the way.
So how many pages would you recommend a business plan be?
2 to 3.
2 to 3?
Because your budget generally is a page.
Okay. Do you recommend putting any graphs or pictures into the business plan?
Make it pretty.
What would you recommend putting in?
A graph, a table, something like the impact statement I showed you. Mm-hmm. And that can be sort of an addendum. So if it makes it more than 2 pages, 3 pages, that's okay.
Okay. And when you were saying how to structure it, would it be wise to kind of structure it like a chairman's essay?
It has to be a little bit more business-like than a chairman's essay. But if you have a good business plan, it makes writing your chairman's essay a little better, a little easier.
A little bit easier.
Mm-hmm, because you have all the information at your fingertips.
Now with the business plan, how would you go about cold calling or finding these businesses to give the business plan to? What's the best recommendation of giving them to these businesses?
There's a lot of different ways you can go. Like I said, start within your team. Look at your parents and say, hey, listen, could you just deliver this? And I know with Bacon and Gravy, we had a sponsor packet, and the business plan was part of the sponsor packet. And we would have a trifold in there. We'd have pictures of the robot, all those kinds of things, and just ask, hey, could you take this to your HR department? Or does your uncle own a accounting office or whatever? Brendan knows. We were really good at getting all kinds of interesting things. Places like the Kiwanis Club and the Moose Lodge and stuff like that, they're always looking for things to present at their meetings. You could talk to the Electrical Engineering Society or the Society of Women Engineers or any of the tech organizations. Some of them may not know what FIRST actually is. And if you say, hey, we would really like to come and do a quick little presentation at your meeting and then take some questions and, hey, we'll bring the robots and you can drive them. Usually they won't tell you no. They might write this minute until the pandemic's over, but you also might be able to do it virtually.
Now, do you recommend like a car wash or any of that kind of stuff for helping fundraising in general?
I personally hate car washes. That doesn't mean that your team shouldn't do them. I think and I will tell you, back in the day, when Bacon made it to championships their first year, and we were not prepared for that, we literally took the robot and stood in front of Publix and just showed a video of the robot and said, we're trying to go to the World Championships. And we made as much money or more that day than we did doing a car wash.
And you could also use the car wash place as a sponsorship too.
That's true. Sonny's Car Wash, we love you.
And then some businesses, sometimes they'll do a percentage off of the day. Can you tell me more about that?
You can. I know Chick-fil-A used to do it, and I think T-Flats, they call them like spirit nights. Culver's does it too, because Gravy just did one at Culver's, where if somebody comes in with your flyer and they order, you get 10% of whatever it is. And that's a great fundraising thing, but don't just blow it off. If your team is doing a spirit night, you need to have your team there with a robot talking to customers the whole entire night, or from whatever usually is 5 to 7:30 or something. Don't just hope that people are gonna show up and take your flyer, unless you're a school and you can email it out, that's different. But make sure that your presence is known. I know Bacon one year, God, this was so many years ago, they did little hands-on science experiments in the lobby of the Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A was so excited, they asked them back a bunch.
And they continued to do their own after that too.
Yeah.
And now, when you're going to these businesses, what do you recommend the students to wear or their mentors to wear? Like, what do you recommend like the costume look to be?
It depends on your team personality. It's never a bad thing to wear a team shirt. It's never a bad thing to go in full battle armor like you were at a competition. It's not a bad idea, I guess, to go in a suit and tie if that is your team MO. Personally, for me, I like to see colorful and exciting and a little bit crazy, as long as and you can pull that off as long as when you give your presentation, you are very well prepared. You have rehearsed, and you're not winging it. And students, I cannot stress this enough. If you don't know an answer to a question that someone asks you, don't wing it. Say, I don't know, but I will find out that answer and I'll get it right back to you. Because I promise you, we'll know you're lying.
And now these really big businesses, what would you recommend to finding them? So like a Lockheed Martin or a BAE Systems, how would you get that first step into the door?
For some of the larger corporations, Disney, Lockheed, BAE, Siemens, places like that, generally you need to have an employee on your side. That's kind of the only way in the door. So again, ask your parents, do you work for this company? I know actually, Bacon, I don't think I've even told you this. One of our very first seniors, his name was Nish. And this was in 2006, so this was a while ago. He called me about 3 weeks ago and said, hey, I just got a new job with Collins Aerospace here in town, and I found out that I can sponsor a robotics team. Can you put me in touch with Bacon? So, I mean, use your alumni. This is, always go back to your alumni and say, hey, listen, people paid for you when you were in high school. It's time for you to help us out. But generally, yeah, you need to have someone in that organization. Ask your neighbors, ask your friends, family. Hey, do you know anyone that works at XYZ Corporation that can maybe give us a little foot in the door?
Now, at competition, we have a lot of sponsors there too, as well as people that could be sponsors that are judges. How would you talk to those people when they're wearing the blue shirts?
Always have a card or a pamphlet or something that you can hand them. And here's a story. I know you know this one. Especially, I'm glad you brought up competitions. Competitions and outreaches. You never know who you are talking to. I know that at one point at the Orlando Regional, there was a CEO of a company who came in, completely walked in off the street, was in a pair of board shorts and a t-shirt, and walked into the stands because he was trying to see what was going on. Did not check in at the VIP table, nothing like that, and went to go sit with a team or sit down, and the team that he tried to sit down, shooed him out of their section because they were saving seats, which we all know this is not allowed. And so he got up and moved, walked to another team who shall be remain nameless, and they welcomed him in, they explained the game, they gave him pom-poms and said, you can hang with us all afternoon. And his company then supported them and they became a sponsor. And that happens all the time. So
you definitely want to just talk to everyone that's there?
Always be friendly and always understand that no matter where you are, if you have a team shirt on, you represent your team. And it can go the other way, because if you're in an elevator trash talking and the person in there is a judge that doesn't have a judge shirt on, your team will get dinged.
Where can we find some resources to help us create a business plan?
Well, I'm one of them.
Okay.
You can always call me. Renee Becker-Blau in Indiana has a fabulous presentation, which I borrowed most of mine from hers. You can go on Chief Delphi. You can go to the business community. In fact, that's something else you can always ask for is we need some business mentors to help us with our business stuff.
Anything to finish out?
I don't know. This is always fun. And honestly, everybody, you should have my email address. If you don't, it's on the first website.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy, for joining us. Again, thank you to the Orange County government for sponsoring this event. And thank you.
Yeah, see, even the RPC needs sponsors.
Yes.
Thank you, Orange County. We love you.
FIRST Robotics Competition is the world's landmark robotics competition for students.
In school, you read about stuff, but in FIRST as a whole, you actually go and do it.
In the beginning of January, the challenge comes out every year. Under strict rules and limited time and resources, you have to design, build, program, and test a robot.
There's no blueprint. We get a few rules and guidelines to follow, and then it's up to those students to find something that works.
There's nothing better than just seeing your robot on the field playing for the first time. They're all there like, is it gonna work? Is it gonna work? And then when it works, it's the best feeling ever.
You have mentors that are actually in the field that can tell you, oh, this is why this works, and this is the science behind it. And you're like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense.
They do a great job, not just about STEM, but about life, how to go through college, how to go through, a tough, physics class.
At face value, First robotics competition is a robot competition, but at the end of the day, it's so much more than that.
People ask me like, oh, you build robots? I says, no, we're really running a business and all the things that go along with that.
We deal with a lot of marketing, social media.
I've learned business side of things.
Problem solving, working in groups.
I'm learning how to communicate with people, how to reach out to local businesses.
So we kind of have robotics as the starting point, but we branch out to different areas and expand.
So the ultimate goal every year is always to get to the first championship.
The first championship is basically like the Olympic for robots.
There's hundreds of teams from all over the world there, and you get to see some of the best teams that exist.
It's very competitive, but you're friends with the people that you're going against. It's like a sport, but in its own way, it's better than a sport.
Being part of FIRST, it's really changed my life and how I think about myself, how I think about others.
Participating in FIRST actually taught me that I'm capable of doing anything that I set my mind to.
FIRST has really inspired me to give back in my old elementary school. I'm trying to help their robotics program that just started this year. I want those kids to have the opportunity to learn about STEM.
As a participant in the FIRST program in high school, you get access to $80 million worth of scholarships.
There are scholarships for colleges, universities, as well as technical programs.
It also looks really good on the actual application to be on FIRST.
FIRST does a really great job trying to open programs to make sure that you could actually accomplish anything in STEM, no matter where you're from, your background, your language, or anything like that.
I really do consider myself part of the STEM community, and I couldn't be more prouder to say that.
FIRST Robotics Competition is one of 4 engaging FIRST programs that shows students unique challenges and helps them learn new engineering skills and real-world skills that'll help them in the future.
FIRST is the future.
FIRST is accomplishment.
FIRST is passion.
FIRST is inspiring.
FIRST is changing my story.